Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. I'm Libby Spencer. I'm the president of the Hopkins County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I'm so grateful that you chose to be here today. Before we go any further, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Young, who will be doing our invocation.
Would you bow with me in prayer? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in praise and thanksgiving. You are our sanctuary and our fortress. You are our great provider and teacher. May your will be done here on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, we ask that you meet our daily needs and that you forgive us for our sins as we forgive others. We ask that you bless the businesses of our community and that we share those blessings. Oh Lord, open our hearts to the needs of our community and world. Give us the boldness to stand for good in all that is holy. Give us, O Lord, the wisdom and discernment to use your blessings to impact our community and the world in mighty ways. Provide those of us who lead others the understanding that all gifts come from you. Lord, let not the temptations of this world empower the evil one, but let us only look to you and your guidance in all that we do. Please forgive us when we fail you as we forgive those who fail us. Lord, we pray for the souls we have lost this year, whether from COVID-19, violence, accidents, or natural causes. Each life is precious, Lord, and we lift all into your loving arms. Thank you for those who have continued to work in the public during this pandemic, from the grocery store personnel to those who produce and deliver the goods and the services that we need, to the first responders and the healthcare workers who have put themselves at great risk to serve others. We'll give thanks and ask for your continued protection for them. As we approach Easter, Lord, let us remember the last command that Jesus gave to his disciples and his followers. We are to love one another. Implore us in our daily lives to ask the question, what does love require of me? We lift all of these prayers in your holy and blessed name. Amen.
Thank you, Bill. That was beautiful. We appreciate you and everything that you do for our community. But I do have a few thank yous that I want to mention, and we are streaming live on social media, so hello for everybody that might be watching from home, and I feel very compelled to say good morning, Brecken, but I think Jack might be saying something later. We can fill in Secretary Adams a little bit later. But I do want to say thank you very much to the City of Madisonville. We are broadcasting because of their time and talent, so I have to do a special shout out to Sarah Lutz as well as Tim Trice. So would you mind standing so we can clap for you? Thank you. And thank you, City of Madisonville, for your sponsorship today, as well as Madisonville Community College, Aviation Program, and Big Rivers. But without the help of First United Bank, they are our presenting sponsors today. I do want to say thank you to Jason, and I believe you are going to come and give some sponsorship remarks. Did I lose Jason? Oh, right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. We do appreciate having the opportunity to support this event today. I'm Jason Hopkins, President and CEO of First United Bank. We want to just say thank you to the Chamber for this event today. How many are excited to just be out and see other people, you know? I mean, that's exciting, and, you know, hopefully we're on the downhill side of our pandemic, but, you know, look at all that we've had to endure over the past year. It has been certainly a challenge, and I know that it's not something any of us could ever have imagined that we would go through. But I'm proud of our cities and our county for pulling together to support one another. You know, I want to say a special thank you to our healthcare professionals, Baptist Health, and others for helping the sick as we got through the last year, for administering vaccine and being on the front lines supporting one another. I want to say thank you to our mayor and our judge executive and the health department. They've become Facebook Live stars over the last year, and they have kept us informed of things that are going on. I want to say thank you to the Chamber. I want to say thank you to Economic Development for supporting small business and getting us through some very, very challenging times. You know, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you all who stepped up, you know, that may have been an essential worker, putting yourself in harm's way to help the people of the community. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, as a bank, and like many other banks in our community, we didn't take a day off either. We learned to do things differently. We, in fact, did some loans through the drive-through. We had staff that worked from home. We had many that stayed home just to be safe. But we did what we needed to do to take care of our customers and our community. And we even worked crazy hours. I know you've heard about the PPP loan program. Chris Finley and his team at First United have done a phenomenal job in promoting that program, and I know other banks in our community have done the same as we try to support and get those dollars where they're needed. You know, I've always looked at Madisonville and Hopkins County and said this community is resilient, but now I know that to be 100% true because each and every one of you, thanks to the many people in this room, we are back. And we're going to be stronger than ever, more united than ever because of what we've had to face together. You know, as this pandemic hopefully subsides, you know, I'm excited for what it brings in opportunities for our community. I can't wait to hear from our elected officials today as they share with us their plans for the future. Again, Libby, thank you so much to the Chamber for allowing us to be the sponsor today. We're excited to be here, and just thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Jason. Without further ado, we are going to start with our formal program, and I'm going to turn the program over to Cameron Edwards, who is our 21 board chairman.
Let me begin by first saying thank you once again to Jason and his entire team at First United Bank for being our presenting sponsor for this event. It's such a wonderful activity that we get to do as part of the Chamber to feature and give a voice to our local elected officials and in some cases our statewide elected officials here today. And so we're just thankful for this opportunity. I am Cameron Edwards, and I'm the 2021 chairman of the Hopkins County Regional Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And I have the pleasure today of introducing 6 of our esteemed presenters today. If you have a question for one of our presenters, their contact information will be listed on the screen to my right. You'll also have on your tables in front of you near the centerpiece question forms in which you can request any certain question. Just write it down on there and place those in the glass cylinder, and we will go around and collect those, and we assure you that you will receive a response from the appropriate individual no matter what your request. Our first presenter today is one of those notable Facebook Live celebrities, and that is our Judge Executive, Mr. Jack Whitfield, Jr. Hopkins County Judge Executive Jack Whitfield is an Air Force veteran, a former coal miner, an entrepreneur. He served as 4th District Magistrate before being elected Judge Executive in 2018. He and his wife Heather are also the owners of Melody Lanes in Madisonville, and I hope you'll join with me as we welcome Jack Whitfield, our County Judge Executive.
Thank you, Cameron, and thank you to the Chamber for putting this event on. You know, I think it's important that we come out and talk to the public about what's going on, what's happening. And I want to thank, there's some people that, you know, as we've all heard, this last year was tough. We had tough decisions to make. We had a lot of pressure and stresses going on. And almost inevitably, when we were having a really bad day, something serious was going on, I would get a text or a call or a message from a community member that just said, hey, just want you to know we're praying for you. We're thinking about you. We care about our community, and we're praying for everybody in it. And there were several people that did that on a regular basis, and it just shows the kind of community that we have, the people that care for each other, that love one another, and will help take care of each other. So I would encourage everybody, not for me, but for those around us, when somebody's sick or in need, or you know they've got stuff going on, just reach out, because that touch can mean so much and just shows what kind of people we are and what kind of community we have. So, like I said, it's been a rough year, and about a year ago, this event had been canceled, and Mayor Cotton and I were talking, and I said, you know, I'm concerned. And he said, well, what's the matter? And I said, you know, I don't think we're giving ourselves enough opportunity to be criticized. And he looked at me kind of funny. He said, how about we do a Facebook Live every day? That'll take care of it. And it did. It really did. It opened a whole world of criticisms up for us. So that worked. But, you know, we could sit here all day and talk about the tough times that we've had and the issues we faced and criticisms and things that went on. But I'd rather talk about the reactions to what was going on and talk about the fact that, yes, everybody got criticized for what they said or believed or did, because there was such a wide variety of beliefs and thoughts about what was going on. But that's what you hear from, is the small percentage that are upset. In general, this community pulled together, worked together, and acted together as one to take care of each other. So it's easy to listen to that small percentage of negative. But I would ask also that you open yourselves up to see the positives that are around us. So again, 2 years ago, and it's been 2 years since we had this address the last time. That was almost 3 months into my term as judge executive, and I said then that I hope to be a judge executive that could be collaborative, that would work together with the cities and even the surrounding area. And we've done that. So throughout this pandemic, we all began to work together closely. On March 12th, we had the first COVID press briefing. And it surprised a lot of the people that came to talk. Dr. Ashby walked in and said, I didn't know that all these people were going to be here. I said, I didn't either. I didn't know it was going to be that big a deal. But we had a lot of people there asking questions. But we all thought, you know, it's very important that we begin to get information out. So we had representatives from the city of Madisonville, the sheriff's department, police chief, health department, Baptist Health, the school board, and others, because we all thought that it would be necessary and helpful if we would get out front to provide information as accurately and as often as possible. So in that vein, we continued that trend by having regular meetings from people who were dealing with this in the community. We discussed where we were going, new information that came in, and new information came in every day. So it was tough to keep up with. But by having those collaborative meetings and working together, we could help keep everyone as safe as possible. And that's what led to the daily Facebook briefings with the mayor and I. And we wanted to use it to get information out. But we realized fairly early on that there were a lot of areas that we didn't have the expertise. We could talk about some things, but I wasn't a doctor or an educator. So we began to bring in some guests. So Dr. Lipson, right here, came in. we loved when he came because everybody loved hearing from him because he is an expert on many of these issues. So it took a lot of pressure off us. So we appreciate Baptist Health making him available and his willingness to do that. But we also had Denise Beach from the health department come in to give information from their perspective. Dr. Ashby was there on a regular basis because we saw question after question about the school system. We had the sheriff and the chief come in to talk about what was going on in law enforcement. Judge McClure, an actual real judge, came in to talk about the legal system. We had our circuit court clerk, Tanya Bowman, in to talk about driver's license and what was going on in the court system. Our county court clerk, Keenan Clorn, came in. I know she's here somewhere to talk about elections and vehicle licensing. We had mental health professionals. We had other mayors and a lot of other people. And I believe that this helped keep Hopkins County informed, and I hope and I believe that it helped ease a lot of fears because we were getting information out on a regular basis and the most accurate and up-to-date information we could. We came together as cities and counties to provide hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of food for the community because early on, people weren't working. Finances were a real struggle for a lot of people. So Magistrate Whitaker had a contact with the USDA, and through him we were able to bring in, I didn't keep count, but it was way over 10 tractor trailer loads of food that we had volunteers throughout cities and county government to hand that food out to people who were hurting. I don't know how many meals it would be together or how much money it was, but I know we had trucks coming in that was $50,000, $60,000 worth of food, and we would pass them out 2 or 3 tractor trailer loads at a time in a matter of hours. So that showed the need that we had, but we came together to help meet those needs and sent that food out to every city in the county so people that couldn't go very far or didn't have a car could still get that. So we worked together as a group to take care of those people. So this last year has definitely been interesting and stressful and eventful and at times even boring because so much stuff was shut down, and it's affected every part of the county government. And I want to talk about a few of the things that went on with different areas of the county. The Sheriff's Department had an interesting year. They had to worry about responding to events and not knowing, especially early on when we still didn't have a lot of information about COVID. They would have to respond to things that were going on, not knowing whether the person they were going to interact with may be COVID positive. But they still went and did that job. We had a lot of civil unrest all across the country over the last year. Fortunately, due in no small part to Sheriff Sanderson's relationships within the community and his willingness to get out and speak and work together, we didn't see big issues here, but what we did see was communication and collaboration between our local law enforcement and different communities within Hopkins County, so they could discuss and address problems before they blew up. And in the midst of all this, the Sheriff's Department still saw a 23% decrease in major crimes and an 11% drop in minor crimes. So I want to thank Sheriff Sanderson and Chief Bryant and all of your officers for the amazing job that you all have done. So Chief, Sheriff, if y'all wouldn't mind stand up and just appreciate the work y'all have done. The Chief and the Sheriff. Thank you. So while we did see a drop in crime, anytime somebody did something wrong and had to be arrested, the next stop was at Hopkins County's biggest bed and breakfast and jailer Mike Lewis. And I know Jailer Lewis is here, and it was certainly a concerning time with the jail. You know, I know I spent a few sleepless nights wondering when COVID was going to get in the jail, and I know that Mike Lewis did as well, because I knew that it was just going to be a matter of time before we had a major outbreak at the jail. And if you look across the state and across the country, Muhlenberg County made national news because their COVID rate just went sky high, but it wasn't really because it was in the county, it was because it was in a correctional institution. It's really difficult to social distance in a jail. So we knew if it got there, it was going to spread. And I was 99% sure it was going to get there. How do you keep it out? And I'm not sure how he did it, but Jailer Lewis kept any inmate in the Hopkins County Jail from ever contracting COVID. And still, to this day, we don't have any cases in the jail. That saved lives. It saved beds at the hospital. It saved countless county dollars because Mike kept that out of there. And I still don't know how you did it, Mike, but thank you and congratulations on that accomplishment for taking care of not only the people but the inmates. I can't tell you, that really was so important to us. And you may not remember this, but last year we also had a big election in the midst of a pandemic. And thanks to Keenan Cloran and her staff, it went extremely smooth. We've got Secretary of State Michael Adams back there who worked closely with Keenan, but she came up and her staff with some extremely innovative ideas on how to handle the election. They handled mail-in voting flawlessly. I went and watched some of it just to see how everything was going. They checked every ballot and every signature on the mail-in votes. They offered Saturday drive-through voting, so people didn't even have to get out of their car. It was touchless, and somebody who maybe was unsteady on their feet or was handicapped, they didn't have to get out of the car. They took care of that for them. Y'all, they even had a mobile voting truck. I've seen a lot of food trucks. I've never seen a voting truck, but it went around to every city in the county just about to make sure that people that wanted to vote had that opportunity. And I think that was used as an example across the state and should be as an example across the country of how to handle elections. So Keenan, your staff, y'all did wonderful. Thank you so much. Our local courthouse is also affected. It's been closed on and off, and there's some changes coming that I want to tell you about that I heard about this morning, actually on the radio, and then I talked to our clerk, Tanya Bowman, about it. As you know, in the past, we've always went to the Judicial Center to get your driver's license. Well, that's going to change. As of April 26th, you will go to the Kentucky Transportation Building on Federal Street next to Madisonville Tire to get your license. That'll be for your regular driver's license, your real ID. And Tanya called me this morning and said that's some information we really need to get out so people get prepared for that and know where to go, because we know that system has gotten backed up due to the pandemic. But also want to thank Tanya Bowman. I don't know if she's here. I don't think she was going to make it. But she also came and gave updates on driver's licensing and on the court system and kept in contact with us on what was going on, because we were getting questions every day on what to do about those issues. The communication we had throughout this county was just amazing on the information that people got out to help everybody know what was going on. So if you see Tanya, thank her for the job that she did. And remember, if you want to get your driver's license renewed, April 26th, you go to that transportation building. You can set up an appointment at drive.ky.gov or just do an in-person there. You can drop in. So another issue that this pandemic brought to light is something that we'd already started working on. And I had actually talked about it at the last address 2 years ago, and that's broadband. And this pandemic made that so much more apparent. People working from home, our kids doing their classwork from home. So I want you to know that we had begun this process before, and we've continued working on broadband, but now it's going even faster, which unfortunately it's government, so it's still going slower than I would like, but we are moving on it. So we're looking at a couple different pathways. We have worked with Watch Communications to get wireless broadband out. That's going to start in the northeastern part of the county, wrap around to the west, and then to the south. We've put your tax money into that venture because we know how important it is, but we've also got grants for about $300,000 to do that. Now, recently there was an RDOF auction, Regional Digital Opportunity Fund auction. 3 different companies have a piece of that will be coming to Hopkins County. Charter, Starlink, and a local electric cooperative won part of that auction. And as part of that, they have to provide broadband service at a certain level to the areas that they won. So that's going to be coming. As we as a county look at our franchise agreements, before we sign them, we're going to tell those companies we want to see a plan to extend your service. You can't do what you've always done. You have to get better. So while I don't ever want the county to be a broadband provider, I do want the county to be a kick behind them saying you're going to have to do better. You're going to have to extend the service because we have to have it for the future. And we will get that done. Again, it may not go as fast as what you'd like. It's not going as fast as what I'd like, but we will continue working on that. We also completed the decennial census in 2020. And if you know Kim Ezel, Kim made sure that Hopkins County was a model across the state. Can't tell you how many calls I got going, how did you all get the census done like this? We were higher than the state average by quite a bit. We were higher than the national average on self-reporting, and Kim Ezel headed that up. She's not here today either, but if you see her, thank her for the work she did on the census. We're also in the middle of using a grant that I talked about again 2 years ago, the CDBG grant. We've got $1 million that Charlie Bashir's headed up getting for the county to put into old, dangerous, dilapidated housing to rebuild or redo those houses. So we're going to get quite a few families that we're taking care of by helping them with their housing, and they were in bad shape. So that's a help for the group. As I said, we want to be collaborative. So we started a new group called the West Kentucky Coalition. 24 counties, 90 cities working together with our legislators and with the state government to get West Kentucky judges and mayors on different boards so that we have a say west of I-65. All too often we hear about the Golden Triangle and their growth in East Kentucky and the problems they have. We have problems and growth here in West Kentucky, and we want to make sure that we're heard. And I'm proud to say that I was elected as the first chairman of that coalition, and I plan on seeing that group grow in strength and in numbers. I know Representative Prunty is here, and we've talked about that coalition. And I want you to know that our representatives, we got 3 representatives here in Hopkins County, and all of them represent Hopkins County well. But Representative Melinda Prunty, who's going to speak later, so I won't talk about any legislative issues, but she is always there, not just for me when I call her, but if you all call, she will talk to you. She will answer. And any of our reps, if you have issues and concerns, call them. They work so well with the county and the cities and with individuals here. So I'm thankful for all you do for us, Representative Prunty. One other project I want to talk about real quick, and I think the mayor will probably talk about it as well. We've talked about a sports complex for 15 years. I think we're going to see a sports complex, finally. We are making progress. One of the things that held this up was my concern about funding for the future. Working together, going in partnership with the city is going to allow that to happen. So, Mayor Cotton, I appreciate reaching out and the work that we've done on that together, and we're going to get it done. I think we really will this time. We've taken the old sign down that said future home of the sports complex. We've got a new location, and hopefully this year you will see dirt work happening. So there's been a lot that's happened. There's been a lot that's changed. And I told you when I campaigned for this job, if you want somebody that's going to sit still, don't vote for me, because I'm not going to sit still. That hasn't changed, and it's not going to. I've not shied away from a challenge, and I'm not scared to change. We're going to keep driving forward. If we don't grow, we're going to die, and I won't let that happen while I'm here. Do everything I can to prevent it. I've talked at length about working with other leaders and entities, and if we all work together, even when we disagree at times, we can make Hopkins County an exciting place to call home, even during the middle of a pandemic. Thank you. I think I went over.
Thank you so much, Judge Executive Whitfield. Our next presenter is Mayor Kevin Cotton of the City of Madisonville. Prior to being elected mayor in 2018, Kevin served as a captain for the Madisonville Fire Department and has spent many years volunteering in the EMS and fire field. Mayor Cotton is also an entrepreneur. He and his wife Donna are owners of Brothers Barbecue. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Cotton.
Well, I too want to say thank you to the Chamber for finally being able to come together and have this event. It was a disappointment that we couldn't do it last year, but unfortunately the pandemic stopped quite a bit of things that we wanted to do last year. 26 months into office, and we've seen a lot of challenges. But I want to tell you, I could not be prouder of this community. I could not be prouder of the people sitting in this room. The team effort that went into this pandemic over this past year has been unbelievable. And if I could give you one word that would describe it, it's strong. So when we're looking at a state of the city and state of the county, it's strong because we came together as a community. I have to give a big shout out to Judge Whitfield. The relationship that we have with the judge has made this past 26 months be easy. I know that sounds crazy, right? Being in government, something's easy. But working alongside of Judge Whitfield has been an amazing journey to know that we have that unity in our community to make us a stronger community. We definitely, you heard the judge speak on several of the things that went on during the pandemic and all of the things that we worked on together to try to get the information out. I have to give a huge thank you to our entire team in the city. I don't know how many of you went to the kitchen sink and turned on the water and the water still flowed, or how many of you went to the restroom and still flushed that commode and it all disappeared, or if you dialed 911 that the fire department showed up, or that the police department showed up. Do you know that's your team? Your team never gave up. They continued through this pandemic, and they need to be given the thanks that they deserve for never giving up in some of the hardest times that this city has ever seen. And it's went on for an entire year. Just last night I was out on a call that they had with a sewer issue. And do you know that those guys had been out for almost, I think it's 14 hours by the time I got there. And they never gave up. They were going to solve that problem no matter what, because they wanted to make sure that nobody lost services last night. That's the team that we have here in the city of Madisonville, and I am so thankful to be a part of it. But it's not just the team, it's the community. As we were getting a few of those complaints on social media, we just had a few, right? So a big thank you goes out to Sarah Lutz in the back. She was able to help us monitor through those. But as we were getting those few complaints and concerns, we received thousands of thank yous, thousands of cards and comments and phone calls and text messages of saying thank you. There were times that it was tough. And I'm not going to stand up here and say that it wasn't. But about the time it would get tough, somebody would send that text message, and it hit right at the right moment. Because that's the community that we have. We have a community that cares about each other. We have a community that is listening to each other. And we have a community that is strong and will be stronger because of what we have endured over this past year. But the city didn't stop. All of your services still continued. There were some that might have been delayed. We did hear about a few of those. But the city never stopped. We continued pressing forward with the plans of being progressive and making sure that we were looking to the future and providing for the future. So on your table or in your seat, you see that this is a strategic action plan. On the back of it gives you the list of individuals that were a part of that. It is community stakeholders. What we looked for was, where are we at, where are we needing to go, and how are we going to get there? And through the help of this community, we were able to identify some goals. We took those goals back to our team, to our department heads, to our leadership, and asked them, okay, here's the goals. Now, what are our tasks and how are we going to get them done? And you'll see that a lot of those things are inside of this brochure have already been completed. You know why? Because your team in the city of Madisonville never gave up during the coronavirus. They continued to push forward, even when we were in the middle of a pandemic. Because that's what we have in the city of Madisonville. That's what you have in your city, a strong, committed team of people that are passionate and proud of the service that they are providing to you, no matter what their position is in the city. We had the opportunity to have lunch with some of them out at the wastewater treatment plant. By a show of hands, how many people have ever been out to the wastewater treatment plant for the city of Madisonville? A few of you. We have folks that's been out there for 37 years. And you know what they said? They love every minute of it. They love serving the community. 37 years. That is amazing to me. We see that across every single department in the city. We talk about quality of life in the city. We never stopped working on improving the quality of life. And if you've been to any of our parks and recreation throughout the city, you can see that we have been working as a team to make sure that we can continue to grow that. Because we know that when those industries are looking into our community, when new families are looking into our community, they're saying, what is there to do in Madisonville? We have a strong quality of life. Our insurance rates in the city of Madisonville are lower than that in the region because we have a Class 2 fire department, because those men and women of our fire department are dedicated to making sure that they are responsive to every need. We see that in our quality of life, and they're asking for things to do, we listen to what those things are. And some of the ideas that we had when we first came in, guess what? They got changed. You know why? Because we listened to somebody that had this idea. We now have, going in at Grapevine Lake, Grapevine Lake has always had a reputation, a negative reputation, as far as I can remember. Guess what's happening at Grapevine Lake right now? There's over 12 miles of mountain bike trails that are going in with 4 different levels to be able to ride on. And you know what's going to happen at Grapevine Lake? It is completely going to turn around. It's going to draw people into our community. It's going to bring folks in, and Trish loves it when there are heads in the beds. It's going to bring people for a weekend to ride bikes right here. And as we move forward into the future and we find new ways to connect our parks, we're going to be able to have those same individuals riding all across town. That is exciting to me to know that this community stepped up with those ideas and brought those to us and said, hey, Mayor, what do you think about this? We don't really want anything. We don't need anything. We just want you to hear this idea. And with the help of the tourism, both city and county, we were able to make that happen. But again, I go back to the relationship that we have with the judge. I don't know if you all have ever realized this or not, but we hear all the time, how in the world do you all work together? Across the state of Kentucky, it doesn't happen. The judge and the mayor hate each other. And I'm sure there's days when we were on Facebook Live that he hated me. And there were days that I hated him because he agreed to do it with me. But we did it. But it's that relationship that bonds us together in a community that allows us to be strong. We talked about economic development, and you're going to hear from Ray shortly. Our jobs position right now is unbelievable. Our unemployment rates right now are almost back to pre-COVID, and in some instances lower than pre-COVID from previous years. That's a great thing for our community. But we still have challenges. We still have housing challenges. We've had 68 building permits for new construction in the city of Madisonville, almost $21 million worth of an investment. But the reality is we even heard from Ray 2.5 years ago, we needed 200 to 250 homes by now. We're nowhere close to it. We're struggling being able to fill the workforce. So we need those new housing developments coming. If you know somebody that has an empty lot, tell them to sell it. If you have a house that you want to sell and you know that you have someplace to go, put it on the market. Because the reality is if you put it on the market, there's a good chance it's going to sell before the end of the day. That's where we're at, because we have a strong housing market right now in our community. But we do have the challenge of not having enough. I'm going to tell you that one of the proudest moments, and you can see it in your brochure on the inside page, right underneath identified tasks to meet objectives, there's pictures of a playground, and right in the middle, you're going to see some young men. Right after I took office, I had an opportunity to go to Pride Elementary School and sit in the cafeteria. They've got a stage at Pride, and there's an opportunity zone for you to sit up on top. It's kind of a special thing. And we were invited to come sit and listen to a couple of young men. They had some ideas. Those are our kids. That's our future. That's our future leaders. They said, Mayor, is there any way that we can make Festus safer? Well, yeah, what do you mean? Well, when we're playing on the basketball court, cars will drive up on the court. Four-wheelers will drive up on the court. Is there anything that we can do? Well, what do you think we should do? Can we put a fence up? Oh, let me check into that. In this picture, you're going to see those young men cutting the ribbon at Festus Claiborne Park after those basketball courts were completely redone. All new lighting for security, all new fences, or new fence period, and updates and upgrades. And they are the ones that made that happen. And they were the ones that were able to cut that ribbon. And that is our future. And that tells me that we are strong in our community because our kids are involved in our community. Which brings me to the sports complex. And yes, we've heard that for 15 years. And thankfully, you went out and took the sign down because it was almost about to fall down. But being able to partner together with the county is going to allow us to bring something to this community that is going to be able to be utilized for our kids, but it's going to bring in hundreds of thousands of people on the weekends, which is going to bring in more opportunities, more job growth, more restaurants, more retail. We have questions about retail. How many of you just saw that retail in America is going bankrupt? It's going all over to the internet. It's all online shopping. It's a struggle. It's a challenge. But because we can partner with the judge and we can partner with the magistrates and the city council, and we have a city council that sees the vision of the future of the city of Madisonville, we're going to be able to bring in things that are enticing to companies, families, and provide a much-needed resource for our kids. We didn't really get to talk last time about the fact that the team in the city of Madisonville was recognized from across the state of Kentucky as City Government of the Year. We were awarded that in 2019. It was in the summer of spring or fall of summer of 2019. Not because of the leadership, but because of the team of people that are dedicated to serve you. We have been working for the future to make sure that our infrastructure is where it needs to be so that when we have industries that are looking, we can provide that water, that sewer. How many of you went out a couple of years ago to Lake Pee Wee and you could almost walk across the water? Well, what we found out was that our emergency water supply pumps that were at the Green River pumping across all the farms to Lake Pee Wee weren't working. And the only one that halfway worked was spraying more water out of it than it was pumping. So with the help of our leadership of Alan Todd and the filter plant, they came up with a great idea. Let's pull them out, refurbish them, and put them back in. And now they work. So hopefully you'll be able to use your kayak all year long instead of having to wait for the water to come back up. Deck the Park. I don't know how many of you went to Deck the Park, but again, this was a team effort. The team in the city of Madisonville wanted to offer something, some type of hope, some type of light at the end of the tunnel for this pandemic. And in Sarah's case, she wanted to offer snow at the end of the tunnel. So it happened. But they took pride in what they were doing. What we heard from those men and women that were hanging the lights on that tunnel was, I was able to do that. I was a part of that. They were proud of what they were doing. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I am honored to be a part of it. As we move forward, we still need more housing, and we're going to hear that. We still need to make sure that we're watching every move that we make so that every decision that we make affects everybody in a positive way. But the reality is we had a strong audit. Teresa, I don't know if she's here. She agreed to do it before the pandemic. And guess what happened? The pandemic hit. That had to be the toughest audit ever because somebody got COVID and somebody else got COVID and somebody else got COVID, and it was a challenge. But we had a strong audit for the city of Madisonville. Our financial position is great. But she also identified areas. Cost of business isn't getting any cheaper. Anybody Notice that? Doesn't get any cheaper for the city either. We have the same struggles as other businesses. But this is what I saw in businesses in our community in the past 12 months. When they couldn't, they did. When they didn't need to, they did it anyway. The donations that we received in our community for PPE to get control of our pandemic was unbelievable. And because of that, we were able to share that with all of the entities that needed PPE, all the way down to being able to donate to the schools so that they could have something to be able to provide for the students, to hopefully come back to some sort of normalcy. But it was this community, it was you that made that happen. And I just want to say thanks. Thanks for letting me be a part of what you're doing. Thank you for letting me be here.
Before we move forward, I just want to share a lot of communities across the Commonwealth deferred to statewide leadership on providing updates. They missed out on opportunities to share things that were going on in real time. They missed opportunities to share and keep their people aware of what was happening. And I just want to commend especially Mayor Cotton and Judge Whitfield. We're tongue-in-cheek about your celebrity status in terms of Facebook, but those updates kept people going, and they felt like they had a sense of control when nothing else seemed to be in their hands. And so I want to thank you for that, and I also want to thank you for the spirit of positivity that reigned throughout that time. I'll take it back to one night. I know these guys were working long days, but the weekend of the Lights in the Park, I took my kids on the trail, and it was 8:45 at night, and it was a long day. I wasn't really wanting to be in the car, but we were going to go look at Christmas lights. And I get to the end of that trail, and I see Santa Claus in a little hut, and I notice that there's a Mountain Dew bottle in Santa's hut, and I knew very quickly that Santa was getting a helper that day. And after what I'm sure was a very long day, there was still a positive attitude. There was still Christmas cheer, and there was still an opportunity to make a child smile. And that's how we know we have incredible leaders, both those who've spoken and those who are still to come. Our next presenter is Chris Phelps, mayor of Morton's Gap. Prior to serving as mayor, Chris has served 14 years on the Morton's Gap City Council. Chris is the president of G. Herbert Pritchett and Associates, and I'd like to ask you to welcome Mayor Phelps.
Thank you all, and thank you to all the sponsors that have, again, sponsored this event, and for all those that have attended, whether you're an elected official, a citizen, business owner, and for the opportunity to allow all of us to speak to some story of the public entities that we represent. And Ms. Spencer, thank you, because every year I've done this, I've been the opening act. Now I'm up to mid-card level, so I appreciate that. Morton's Gap, it's been a couple years, and Morton's Gap is when I last spoke to this, we were in the need of a water system upgrade, a major one. We were hemorrhaging money because we were hemorrhaging water. Well, this journey started in 2016. Mayor Stafford, then Mayor Stafford, was still in office. We submitted our application, and it was denied. We tried again in 2017 after Mayor Stafford had to step down, and I took the reins. And again, it was denied. And I told our city clerk, I told our city council members, I told our state representatives, I told our senators, I told Painter Area Development District that if we don't get it in 2018, we're really going to be in trouble financially. Well, 2018 comes around, we get all the surveys in, the application, everything looks good, only to be told that we were denied because there was some errors on the application. Pennyroyal Area Development District, PAD, they went to bat for us, and it turns out there were no errors on our part. There was an error on the governor's office's part, but they didn't revive the application. So I knew we were going to be in trouble because not only you got to get the grant, you got to get to the award process for all the contracts, the work has to be done. But thank God in 2019 we got it. And as I talked to you today, that water infrastructure is being replaced in Morton's Gap, and we're now saving money. So it's been great. It's been great. And the way it worked out, God was in it, in my opinion, because we had various scenarios that were presented to us that we could get a community development block grant. CDBG is what we call it. You could get that along with participation from rural development, USDA. But there's a bigger loan on behalf of the city that we'd have to repay. Then the next option would be Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, KIA. Again, you're going to probably have about a 50% loan on that. Low interest rate, you're still on the hook for half. Again, not the ideal situation, but okay, we got to have it, we got to take it. And then, of course, if you can't get any of those things, you can always apply for a loan through USDA or just straight up KIA or some other entity, okay. And then the least likely but best case scenario was you get KIA participation and CDBG participation, because that gets you the least amount of loan that's going to have to be owed by the city of Morton's Gap, about 25%. Again, least likely scenario, but certainly the best case of them. And when we were waiting after the 2018 denial of the application, I had to have a backup plan. So I applied for KIA funding, and you got to be invited to their table. It's not an easy thing to do. You got to show a need, but you got to be invited to their table. Well, we were invited to their table. We showed up, we presented our case, and they okayed us. And then we got a call from the governor's office, Representative Prunty, saying, hey, we need you to show up, at the governor's conference. I think it was in August, September. They're going to present Morton's Gap with the CDBG. So that was the best case scenario. And it just so happened, despite all those denials of applications, it just happened to be worth our while to be put off to 2019, because not only are we getting a great water infrastructure put in, a new water system, but we have the least amount owed for that system. It's great news. So COVID has, like every other community, like a lot of businesses, it's presented Morton's Gap with some challenges, to say the least. We don't have a big revenue source. Our biggest revenue source is water and sewer. And of course, with COVID, we also had the inability to turn people off for lack of payment of those services, meaning that the city had to foot the bill. So in the process of getting all the water line infrastructure installed, we also ran into non-payment of services and nothing we can do about it. And, that put a big dent on our funding for water and sewer. Those are restricted funds. You can only use water and sewer funding for water and sewer services. We can't use that money for streets. But we were having to move people around different payrolls and so forth to be able to fund their paychecks. And it left us lacking money in those other areas. But thankfully, we have since gained some financial stability with the tightening of the water system and people paying those back dues. I also got help from Pennyroyal Area Community Services, PACS, in helping some of those individuals in arrearage to get their bills current. And, like everybody else, we did lose some, but overall we're doing okay now. And the CARES funding, the COVID CARES funding, we were able to use some of that money to put in Wi-Fi that beams into the city park. So if you got kids that are at home and homeschooling at that time, and still to this day, some of them, you know, if they don't have internet service, you can go to Morton's Gap and get in the park. You got a good laptop or some kind of a wireless device, you could do your schoolwork. So we were able to put that funding to use. We were able to use it to fund a couple of part-time people to help with mowing, because the community service workers, and thank you Jailer Lewis for providing those, we have not had access to them, nor have any other communities. And we relied heavily on those guys and gals. We did, because they were provided to us. We didn't pay anything for them. And they, you know, gave us the manpower we needed to get to get mowing done, to do other things on public property. And, you know, the old saying, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Well, you know, we took those things for granted, and we look forward to getting them back. And hopefully we can soon. So, and that's one of the things we got to face now, is trying to get the manpower this mowing season ready and trying to get the financial ability to do it. So I'm hoping that some additional CARES money will come across at some point, or some sort of funding. City of Madisonville, the county, has been great in helping us out when we've needed it. When we had this last winter storm, City of Madisonville provided some salt for us, and we appreciate that. We got new sidewalks, I think, since I was last here. And it was a match grant of about 20%. We put in some to pay for engineering fees, but the county had some available funding that they provided us that allowed us to do the other part of the match. So working together as a community overall in Hopkins County from different cities and the overall county is super great for a community of our size. And, you know, sometimes, Bill Young, you gave a great invocation. You know, it hit on a lot. It put the strain on a lot of small businesses. So to have that concern as a small business person, I know what that feels like, because you also praiser, and we run most of the teams face the same dilemma. So one day, it's in late part of the season, we are on the field, reopen. Have you heard anything about when businesses can reopen? They're looking to us for comfort, and they need those reassuring words in these times. They do. Because leaders, we've got to be there for them. We've got to feel their pain. When the team wins, you celebrate with them, but you watch them celebrate. That's one of the great things about coaching, is you watch a team celebrate, but you also feel the pain when they lose. But you let them know it's going to be okay. You don't quit on them, that's for sure, because that's not what a leader does. And I think everybody that's going to be speaking today, I know Mayor Cotton and Judge Whitfield, they ain't quit. They're still showing up. They're still being there for the community. So for the motivation, I know, again, I'm representing the city of Morton's Gap, a small segment of the population, less than 1,000 people. I understand that. I understand I represent a small business. But I'm also going to tell you, for whatever it's worth, we're going to be okay. COVID will end eventually. Kids are going to go back to school. Businesses are going to thrive again. Loan officers are going to have tons of loan. I know you're already doing the PPE stuff, but you're going to be flooded with your offices again with people seeking loans. Developers are going to build again, and businesses will thrive. So again, coming to you as best I know how, that we're going to be okay. So keep the faith. We're America. We're Hopkins County. God bless.
thank you very much to Mayor Phelps. And I distinctly remember sitting in this room at your last update regarding the water project that was coming, and certainly admirable. Not all projects are glamorous in public work, but they are all important. And the commitment that it takes to accomplish a project that takes 3 years to do, that's certainly a wonderful accolade, and very proud for you and your city for coming out on top there. We're going to change the order of our program just a moment, and we're going to invite to the stage Secretary of State Michael Adams to go ahead and head this way. Mr. Adams is a new friend and someone that has done a fantastic job in his role as Secretary of State of the Commonwealth. He's Kentucky's 86th Secretary of State and the 77th person to serve in that role. He's a Western Kentucky native coming from Paducah and a graduate of the University of Louisville and Harvard School of Law. He served as Deputy General Counsel to Governor Ernie Fletcher and Counsel to U.S. Deputy Attorney General in the second Bush administration. He was inaugurated as Secretary of State on January 6, 2020. His work in making it easy to vote and hard to cheat, and taking Kentucky from the back of the pack as a national leader to a national leader in election administration in just a few mere months. He has earned praise throughout America and across party lines. He's also a fantastic drummer, and I give to you today Secretary Adams.
Good afternoon. It's so great to be with you all today, especially for me, a Western Kentuckian, being actually the only statewide elected official who's from west of I-65, let alone from the Purchase as I am. It's really special to be here today. It's a special honor, as I understand. I'm the first statewide official you've invited to this event. So it's a real honor for me. I'm very grateful and humbled by that. What great leadership you all have in Hopkins County. This is amazing to hear about all the collaboration, the lack of silos, the lack of rivalries, folks just working together in good faith to solve problems instead of playing politics. I wish we had more of that in Frankfort. I really do. It's harder in state government. It's by, I think it's inherent nature, a bit more partisan in nature, but that's no excuse. I've tried to be nonpartisan and bipartisan in everything that I've done, working across party lines with our governor, with Democrats in the legislature, with Democratic county clerks as well as Republicans, and I think we've got a lot of good things to show for that. My campaign slogan was "Make it easy to vote and hard to cheat." I thought that was a pretty clever slogan that fit really well on a bumper sticker, but I've actually really tried to do that. I meant both parts of that sincerely, and I don't believe I would have been elected to this office in a big upset if I hadn't promised to do both, and if I hadn't been sincere about both. I won because I helped all the Republicans that cared about making it hard to cheat, but I also picked up a lot of Democrats who voted for Andy Beshear because they trusted me when I said I wanted to make it easy to vote. And so I've worked really hard to do both of those things. Obviously, coming in last year, as soon as I took office almost, the pandemic hit, and we were going into a primary and a general election in the course of a pandemic. Talk about hazing the new guy. That was a challenge that I'm so pleased that we stood up to and met. It wasn't that long ago that Hillary Clinton and LeBron James and various celebrities from outside of our state were pointing to Kentucky and saying that we were going to be a complete debacle, that we were engaged in Jim Crow suppression tactics. We proved them wrong. We actually had the most successful election held last year during the pandemic. We all pulled together. I worked with the governor across party lines, worked with the county clerks, the state board of elections, Democrats and Republicans. Even at the polling sites, we have a split of Republicans and Democrats as the poll workers. We do it different here at Kentucky. We work in a bipartisan, respectful fashion and make sure we solve problems. And I also want to join the shout out to Keenan Clorn for running just an exemplary performance here in Hopkins County. This is a great example of things I would suggest to other clerks around the state, you should be doing what Keenan's doing in Hopkins County to make it easier for your voters to vote. Go think outside the box. We really did that. So in 2020, I'm pleased to say we had a successful election by any possible metric you can judge it by. We had a secure election, secure against foreign interference, secure against vote fraud. A lot of folks thought that if we made it easier to vote, we'd have cheating and we'd have fraud, and we didn't. I've been involved professionally in Kentucky elections in some capacity my whole career, and I can't think of a single election that we've had that has been as free and fair as this one. And we did that in a pandemic. That's pretty remarkable. We had a record turnout. We've never had 2 million voters vote before in a Kentucky election. We had that. And most important, I think, is we did it safely. Kentuckians primarily want to vote in person. That's our nature, that's our culture, and I support that. They want to come out and vote in person, and they did that. But we kept everybody 6 feet apart and masked up, and we were able to have people voting in the millions and not have a spike in COVID cases. We had a spike coming out of the 4th of July, out of Labor Day, out of Thanksgiving, out of Christmas, but not out of the election. That's pretty remarkable. And again, that's a testament to the clerks, but also to the voters for just working with us so well. So what were the things that we thought we could take from that process and make permanent? To be clear, last year was an anomaly. We certainly don't expect to have another election like that for another 100 years if we can avoid it. But there were some things that we learned in that process that were improvements that we made because of the pandemic that actually were pretty well received, that saved the county some money, that made voting easier for people, that actually enhanced our security. So shortly after the election, I helped put together a working group. I surveyed all the county clerks to get their thoughts. I sat down with legislators, talked with legislators of both parties, county clerks of both parties, and ultimately helped put together a bill that made 7 significant changes to our election laws on a permanent basis. So think of it this way, it's kind of bracing. The last time that we redid our election code, our election system, was 1891. We didn't even elect the Secretary of State until 1895. It was an appointed office at that time. So in the entire history of my office being elected office, no one has actually tried to reform the way that we vote and make it better. In 1891, when our election code was written, there weren't automobiles yet. People were taking horse and buggies to go vote. There wasn't electricity in homes. Think about that for a second. So we had a great model maybe for 1891, but not for 2021. So I really thought this was a great opportunity to make some significant changes. So here are the things that we did. 4 things that essentially we had a pilot project for last year, and then 3 new enhancements that I requested. So first, early voting. Even in a pandemic, Kentuckians wanted to vote in person. But if everybody who wanted to do that had voted on election day, we would have had people in line until literally 2 or 3 in the morning. That's not speculation. That actually happened in other states. We would have had people get sick, and we would have had people get disenfranchised, and neither of those was acceptable. So the best way to fix this was to offer more days for people to go vote. It wasn't rocket science. We had 3 weeks of voting for our general election. I don't think that we need 3 weeks of voting in every election. That's pretty inconvenient and expensive for our clerks. But I did think that a few days of early voting made a big difference last year. We had a big surge in early voting the last 3 days before the election. I'm sensitive to candidates who say, look, I don't want to have to be on the ballot for 3 weeks. How am I supposed to plan a campaign around that? How am I supposed to plan my advertising around that? I get it. But a few days before, that addresses that concern that the people running for office had. It's also not so draconian a change that it's difficult for the clerks to manage. I found that actually 80% of the clerks wanted early voting. Even though it meant for them a little bit more work, they loved it and their voters loved it. So I thought we should add some days of voting, and we got that in this bill. Countywide vote centers, giving the clerks flexibility to design different voting options on the ground for their counties. We made that in this legislation permissive. It's not mandatory, but we gave them the freedom to do the types of things that Keenan was so creative in doing here in Hopkins County. It's really important that we give at least the ability to every county clerk to have at least one countywide vote center where anybody in the county can vote. I've been doing elections in some capacity since the early 1990s. I started running campaigns professionally when I was a teenager. And vote suppression is a real thing. And what I've seen it happen in Kentucky, it hasn't been something that was partisan necessarily. It was sort of a benign neglect in this sense. People go to the wrong precinct and get turned away. Not everybody is as engaged as maybe all of us are voting every election we get to vote in. A lot of folks are like my family that only voted every once in a while, every several years. And then they go vote, and then they'd be turned away because they were in the wrong precinct. Well, regular folks don't know their precinct. And maybe their precinct changes. What if there's one place they can always know they can go vote, and they'll never be turned away? So that's in this bill. The absentee ballot request portal. So absentee balloting is not something that I made up for an emergency. It's been on our books for many decades, and it's actually been in our state constitution a constitutional right since 1945. I don't have a problem with absentee voting. I think it needs to be secure. So with the absentee ballot request portal that we implemented last year, again, this was through emergency powers that I was granted for the pandemic. Those appropriately have expired. But on a permanent basis, we've asked for this to be maintained, and we've gotten that. The absentee portal has a couple of great advantages. One is it's easy for you to go online and request your ballot without going through a bunch of rigmarole, having to fill out forms, mail them in, get another form back, and send it back. It's instantaneous. But here's the best part. You can personally track your ballot 24/7 on the website and see where it is in the process. Has your application been received? Has it been processed? Has it been sent out? Your ballot sent out? Has it been received back? Has your vote been counted or not? This is great for you as voters, full transparency with your ballot, but it also is great for me because now I can monitor this election, the absentee balloting portion of this election, and monitor for any lost or stolen ballots. What I found is that when you enhance access, you also enhance security. Those two things are tied together. Some folks only want one and not the other. You got to have both. The career prosecutors I worked with to prevent vote fraud, they told me that early voting helped make the election cleaner and fairer because it's harder to have a vote buying scheme when the election occurs over multiple days. So expanding access actually made the election more secure also. The portal does the same thing. Here's another example, the fourth thing, the cure process. In 2018, before I got to Frankfurt, 7.5% of absentee ballots were literally thrown in the garbage. Thrown in the garbage with no notification to the voter that their ballots have been chucked. That's outrageous. Now, under what we did last year, that's now been adopted permanently, now the county clerk calls the voter and says, hey, we got a ballot back and the signature doesn't match what's on your voter registration card. This is good for access and security. It helps to prevent from disenfranchising someone whose signature looks different today than when she registered to vote maybe 50 years ago. But it's also good for security. If the voter says, hey, that wasn't me, now we've got a potential vote fraud case to go investigate. So again, you can have access and security at the same time, and when you enhance one, you enhance the other. Three more things. Number one, I asked for additional authority to get our voter rolls cleaned up. I inherited voter rolls with 400,000 people on them that we know have either moved away, passed away, or been put away. That's not according to my office, it's according to a federal judge who entertained litigation for years and issued a finding against my predecessor. So we've worked very hard on that. We've had several months in office where we've taken off more dead voters than had live voters. And we've just about cleared that backlog, but I also asked for additional authority to take off people who are voting in some other state. Under our law, as I got it, I get a notice almost on a daily basis from secretaries of state from other states telling me, hey, so-and-so is on our rolls voting, but they're also on your rolls. They say you should take them off. And I say, yeah, you're right, but I can't. So I asked for and I was granted the authority to take these people voting in other states off our rolls so they can't double vote. I also asked for a transition to 100% paper ballots. The number one issue I found as I traveled our state for 21 months, relentlessly campaigning, is no matter what your politics, Democrat, Republican, neither, everybody wants to vote on a paper ballot because everyone wants to know that there's a paper trail. You don't have to be a Democrat that thinks that Russia stole the election for Donald Trump, and you don't have to be a Republican that thinks that Dominion machines stole the election for Andy Beshear. I don't buy either of those conspiracy theories, but the fact is voters trust paper, and they should. They're right to. I can't do a recount without paper to go back and count. So we're now transitioning toward paper ballots. And the last thing is we banned ballot harvesting. Our law didn't necessarily permit ballot harvesting, but didn't add for any actual prohibition or penalty. This is actually a way you can steal an election. There was an election in North Carolina just 2 years ago. This is not 19th century stuff. This is current day. An election for Congress in North Carolina that had to be thrown out just 2 years ago because of ballot harvesting. They can't figure out who actually won because of all the fraud that brought in. So this bill that had all these enhancements of security, you compare Kentucky to other states passing laws to address ballot integrity and security issues. Well, you're seeing partisan fights in those states. You're seeing threats of litigation in those states. Here in Kentucky, we got everyone from Rand Paul supporting this bill to every single Democratic member of the legislature. Every single one voted for this bill because we negotiated this in a fair, respectful, civil, and bipartisan fashion. And I'm so proud of that. So this went through the House 93-4, went through the Senate 33-3. The House has to vote when they come back on Monday on a floor amendment the Senate offered that was very technical in nature, and then it goes to the governor's desk, and I'm confident he'll sign it. All really good news. How often is it that someone comes here from Frank? This is really good news. This is going to change elections and take us from 47th or 40 to number 1 in just months. Last point, real fast, all so much.
Next, I would like to introduce Ray Hagerman, President of the Madisonville Hopkins County Economic Development Corporation, an organization that serves as the resource and catalyst for economic development and sustainability in Hopkins County. Madisonville Hopkins County Economic Development Corporation was recently named our nonprofit of the year by the Hopkins County Regional Chamber of Commerce. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Ray Hagerman.
Thank you, Cameron, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. This is always a great event, and again, we appreciate the fact that we were awarded the Nonprofit of the Year. I do want to congratulate Mayor Cotton and Judge Whitfield and Mayor Phelps and everybody who they and their teams really took charge of this community and did what any good leader does, and rather people say, hey, you know what, my workforce, I can't find enough people at my company. And I would say to you, most of the people that think of economic development kind of use the Chick-fil-A test. They go, well, if everything's so great, how come we don't have a Chick-fil-A? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because even though we have been successful in this community in building good jobs, and all of us that are sitting out here at these tables are probably doing okay, you know, the largest single block of households in our community, which is almost 20% of them, earn more than $100,000 a year. That might be new news to some of you guys. And you'd think, well, that ought to qualify for a Chick-fil-A. Except that a full 1/3 of our people, our households in this community, don't even earn $30,000 a year. So how much more are we going to love this community? Well, you might ask, okay, so what are we doing about that, Ray? What's your role in this? Well, I would say that's a role that all of us have. Our job is primarily to create jobs and facilitate small business help and see new business be created. We never thought, although we're heavily involved in it, that we would be so dependent on workforce development. But we are. So what are we doing about those things? Well, I would submit to you there's a lot of things that are being done about it, but what about that 1/3 that doesn't make $30,000 a year? We've got to find new ponds to fish in our community. We have to show more love to our community in terms of raising our neighbors up. So the question then becomes, how much more do we love our neighbors? You know, there's a noted theologian named G.K. Chesterton that I'm very fond of that once said that men didn't love Rome because it was great. Rome was great because men loved it. So we have a lot to do in our community. We have some problems of prosperity. We have great collaboration, and we work together well. We've proven that through the pandemic. But what we haven't yet proven is, how do we lift up our brother? And when I'm saying that, I'm really tired of the old excuse of, well, people just don't want to work anymore. That's really just not true. It is true sometimes, but we've got people that maybe have criminal records in this community. Jailer Lewis and our organization have worked on a program where people that are nonviolent offenders, and they're going to be getting out sometime in the next couple of years, have the ability to earn a living by learning a skill. And while they're incarcerated, they learn a skill. They learn construction skills, for example, so that when they get out, they will get a good job and they won't go back to the life of crime that they have. That's a pot of people that we have to show love to. There's a group of people that in our community that is severely drug addicted and has substance abuse problems. I dare say there's not a single person at any table that are here today that has not been touched, either in your family or friends or someone you know, that has suffered from substance abuse. Are we lending a hand to those people to encourage them to change their lives and help plug them back into the community and be productive in jobs? We talking about having a criminal record again. There's many of y'all as employers that can offer people through a second chance. You don't have to automatically just disqualify somebody because they may have been a felon at one point in their life. Get to know them. Give them an opportunity. Present an opportunity for them to excel and be successful. There's a whole nother group of people in our community that are not in the workforce that should be. And that's a person who has some sort of disability. I brought with me today my good friend Lamont Hughes, and many of you guys may know Lamont. Most of the time he's in a motorized scooter and he's going all over town in the rain and every other thing that he doesn't need to be doing because it's going to ruin his scooter. But you're not going to stop this man. I was so impressed with this guy when I first met him. He first said, hey, I want to start a business. So we're helping him to figure out how he's going to start a business, helping him put together a Kickstarter campaign so he can do his business. But he's also got a part-time job. He'll work anywhere, anytime for anybody. And next week we got an interview for him with an employer in this town who looked at themselves one day and they said, how are we going to solve this workforce problem? Well, you know what? We need to rethink how we do some of our jobs. I think some disabled people might be able to handle jobs like that. And so Lamont's going to be interviewing with these people. He's been stricken with cerebral palsy since he was born. He's confined to a wheelchair, and he doesn't communicate very well. I scare myself sometimes because maybe that says something about me. I don't know. But he tries. Everything, every day, he tries. I call Lamont an excuse eliminator. Because if Lamont Hughes can do it, then anybody in this community can do it. But we have to give them the helping hand to bring them up. So I really want to emphasize that the only way that we're going to solve our problems of good fortune, and that is that we have plenty of jobs and we will have more, is that we have got to help raise up our neighbor. We have to see the people who want to work and want to try, like Lamont Hughes, have the opportunity to do that. You know, again, just in the words of Chesterton again, you know, our community, we don't love it because it's great. It's great because we love it. And so with that, I'm going to leave you. And, oh, one more thing. If we do help our community and we do give a hand up to our neighbor, and we do raise up that neighbor's economic status, guess what? You might get your Chick-fil-A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. Next, we have the pleasure of hearing from Representative Melinda Gibbons Prunty. Representative Prunty is a Republican member of the Kentucky House of Representatives, representing the 15th District since 2017. Please welcome to the stage Representative Prunty.
First of all, I'd like to thank Libby for the opportunity to be here in the Chamber for sponsoring this event, being a part of it. I represent Southeast Hopkins County, which is Anton, southeast of 41, southeast Madisonville, east of 41, the Parks, Grapevine, most of Arlington, all of Morton's Gap, most of Nortonville, and all of White Plains. And one of the joys of this job has just been meeting folks and working with all of you all wonderful elected officials. And Judge, I appreciate all the kudos that you gave me, and Mayor Phelps. What I wanted to do just quickly was just give you an overview of session. It's been different this year, obviously, because of COVID. There aren't a lot of people in the halls. Very few people are let in to our offices to visit. But we as a caucus remain very committed to crafting good long-term policies and necessary to grow our economy and make Kentucky the best place to live and work. We will defend the pro-life, pro-family, pro-worker values held so dearly by the people of this state. While the pandemic has shifted our attention to for the short term, we're still committed to our mission, and the legislation we are working on this session balances our short-term and long-term needs. Saturday, March 6th, marked the one-year anniversary of the first diagnosed case of COVID in the state, as well as the first state of emergency order. Because we hit the ground running in January, we were able to address issues early in the session, including legislation to help Kentuckians safely navigate the remaining days of the pandemic, protect the unborn, refine the emergency powers statute, and strengthen oversight over the state's regulatory process. There are 2 days left in session, as our state constitution requires us to adjourn sine die by March 30th, so Monday and Tuesday we'll be back in session. Primarily, we will deal with additional vetoes along with other bills that didn't cross the finish line by midnight on March 16th. While we were not surprised by Franklin Circuit's ruling regarding House Bills 1 and Senate Bills 1 and 2, we were disappointed that the court failed to recognize that the legislature is the only branch of government with lawmaking authority, even in a state of emergency. A great deal of careful consideration went into each of these measures. House Bill 1 was aimed at providing businesses, organizations, and schools some framework to remain open if they could safely operate, something more consistent than the arbitrary nature of shutting down one business while letting another remain open, or applying the same limits to all child care facilities regardless of their square footage, while allowing random facilities to provide child care for frontline workers. Both chambers worked on bills drafts that eventually led to Senate Bill 1 and 2, which balanced the need for our executive branch to act quickly in an emergency while ensuring that a governor does not overstep his or her authority and begin lawmaking without engaging the legislative branch. Our top priority this year has been crafting a responsible one-year budget as we face uncertain revenue coming in. The budget that we approved was designed to be a conservative spending plan that reflects our state's needs, as well as make strategic investments that lay the groundwork for our future. Our rainy day fund has now enough to cover 29 days in case of emergency. We had been hovering between 10 to 14 days and as low as 3 to 4 days of our budgetary needs. The 29 days of reserves improves our credit score to provide leverage for current and future opportunities. Critics have argued that we have federal dollars coming, so why have we put so much in the rainy day account? But we didn't feel it prudent to budget for money we didn't have in our possession. If we need to look at how to direct those federal dollars once they arrive, we will do so at that point in time. I've heard a lot from a lot of folks about teachers' health insurance not being covered in this budget. There's a lot of misinformation going around about that. It is being fully covered. Last year it was covered by the general fund, and the plan last year, which they knew in advance, was that this year is being covered by an overpayment to the system by the state, or a credit, if you will, rather than have the system reimburse the state. There have been grossly overestimated costs every year for the past several years, up to as much as 250+% more than actual costs. The Teachers Retirement System Facebook page has a post about the misinformation that's circulating. Based on recent experience, the economic forecast for the next 12 months is far from certain. We've recovered only 65% of the jobs lost, and we may lose more. Capital investments are down. Medicaid costs are going up. We experienced nearly a 20% increase in enrollment due to the pandemic, but hopefully folks will go back to work and get their insurance back at their job, and that will decrease. But while we expect to have a good recovery, we wanted to deal with reality. So House Bill 192, which is the executive budget for this session, is in the governor's hands. The question is not if our state will do something about infrastructure funding, but what and when. Our roads and bridges and dams are crumbling, and we must make investments in airports and other aviation infrastructure to remain competitive. We know that. However, increases must have the support of leaders across the state, and I've heard from many elected officials here in the 15th District, judges, city councils, mayors, fiscal courts, as well as constituents. Not everybody sees this issue the same way. House Bill 561 must also have the support of the governor, which I've heard he wants, but he hasn't come out in strong support of it. With the price of gas at the pump already going up, it is difficult to consider adding any amount on the backs of those who haven't been able to go to work or receive their unemployment insurance benefits, which I expressed to Secretary Gray in December. Each branch of government needs to do its job, and House Bill 561 in its current form, I don't think it has enough support, but we'll have to see what happens next week when we go back. Unemployment insurance still is a major issue. At the beginning of March, there remained between 80 and 100,000 unprocessed claims. The cabinet can't tell us how much the state still owes in benefits, and we already carry at least $700 million in debt after the executive branch took out a line of credit from the federal government without consulting the House. And I still hear daily from constituents who continue to have issues. Some people haven't received anything from the beginning. House Bill 367 is one measure that passed out of the House that would mandate public employment offices be open and operational in specified locations across the state anytime the unemployment rate in a local workforce area increases above the 5% level. There are ongoing negotiations with the Senate and the governor's office to determine the final version of the bill. We provided some relief with the passage of House Bill 1, which includes a provision that waives penalties and interest on late unemployment insurance taxes, as well as gives employers more time to pay their tax. But again, that bill's been enjoined by the courts. House Bill 413 has been delivered to the governor. It is aimed at keeping people off unemployment by preserving jobs through suspending an increase in the taxable wage base for 2 years, suspending the state unemployment surcharge for 2 years, requiring that unemployment insurance claims that are the direct result of state or federal emergency be paid out of a pooled account rather than the employer's account. Secretary Adams gave you the update on election reforms, and we should be passing that next week. Several education measures that passed. House Bill 208 provides a framework for transition from closure to full-time in-person instruction. House Bill 338 would allow the use of KEYS money at proprietary schools to pursue careers in the trades. Senate Bill 128 would allow K-12 students to repeat the past school year, meaning seat coverage, while it would still be at the local school board's discretion. House Bill 563 would allow tax credits for donations by companies or individuals to educational opportunity accounts to assist parents in getting the best education their child needs and allow SEEK money to follow the student. It has been vetoed. House Bill 258 would establish a new hybrid plan for new hires only in the teachers' retirement system after January 1, 2022. It has been vetoed. But House Bill 258 was crafted by educators and vetted through all stakeholders over the interim. Like many bills, there's much information circulating about that. Pro-business, House Bill 7 would establish a Kentucky Recovery Ready Community Certification Program for cities and counties. House Bill 372 will bring Kentucky into contention to win data center projects. It's waiting to be passed in the full Senate. House Bill 230 would attract more cryptocurrency mining facilities to Kentucky, particularly due to our low-cost energy, and it's been delivered to the governor. House Bill 320 is aimed at getting broadband to the last mile of unserved and underserved Kentuckians. This will allow competition to those companies who are currently serving but are not serving to capacity to make a good service. So we're trying to create some competition there, and it has been delivered to the governor. House Bill 278 will conform Kentucky law to federal law to allow deductions paid with proceeds from loans made under the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. It will help struggling small businesses and the self-employed by offering tax relief on state tax filings for entities who receive those loans, and it has been signed into law. House Bill 405 is the bill that pays claims against the state, among other things, but of interest to the business community would be that it increases the funding for child care. We haven't done much with tax reform, although our long-term goal is to continue the tax reform that we began 3 sessions ago. But the worst time to raise taxes or do any kind, not raise taxes, but do tax reform is when you need money, and we need money right now. But we know the first goal of tax reform should be to build prosperity for everyone. We want to build sustainable growth so that everyone can enjoy a better quality of life. House Bill 556 would allocate $20 million to the Rural Hospital Operations and Facilities Revolving Loan that was created during the 2020 legislative session to help rural hospitals that are in danger of closing. And we hope it'll cross the finish line next week. We've passed a few agricultural bills. There's several veterans bills floating around. None of them have crossed the finish line yet. We've passed several pro-life pieces of legislation. We've also passed several pieces of legislation with regards to mental health, and we are very proud of that work because we know that's a big issue, especially with COVID. On a personal note, I have been active in anti-racism Kentucky. I haven't met Terrence Sullivan. I know he's from here. I know Sheriff Sanderson has served on that as well. But I know Dr. O.J. Alika and been working on that. And locally, I've just been proud to be a part of this community, very excited about the new aviation program with Madisonville Community College with its part here in Hopkins and Muhlenberg. I was lucky enough to have both airports in my district. So again, with that, I'll just say I appreciate being here and having the opportunity. Appreciate you all staying and your attention. And I'm humbled. It's a privilege to serve Hopkins County. So thank you.
Thank you so much to Representative Prunty for her update and for her support of the Hopkins County Regional Chamber of Commerce. I would encourage all of you to remember the question forms are on the table. You can fill those out for any of our elected officials, and we will get you a response on that. And I'd also like to say, if your elected official wasn't with us today, please encourage them not only to be a part of this event next year, but also to encourage them to build a relationship with our Regional Chamber of Commerce. As you can see, we do a lot of great things together. And with that, I will turn the podium over to our closing speaker, Dr. Cindy Kelly with Madisonville Community College.
I only have 13 pages of notes. Yeah. I am Cindy Kelly, and I serve Madisonville Community College as its president. And I am here today both representing the college but also representing the chamber as a board member. I walked in the room and wasn't sure what to do. This is the biggest group of folks I've been with for over a year now. And it's just great to be here. I know we're all still maneuvering this, trying to figure out exactly how we're supposed to act through this pandemic, but I do believe, and I hope we're on the downhill side, and I'm looking at my Baptist Health people here for an affirmative. It is different to be face-to-face, and it's a great day that we're here together and that the Chamber has been able to sponsor this event once again. I want to thank for the Chamber Secretary Adams and Representative Prunty and all of our local elected officials that were here speaking with us today. And I know it's been a difficult year. We heard all of that. But what I want us to end with today is, even though it's been a difficult year, we need to focus on the victories and the grace that we've seen in the past 13 months. I believe at the college, and I believe in the city and the county and in the state, we're coming out of this stronger than we ever thought we could. We're doing things in ways we never thought we could, and we're going to be able to offer services that we never were able to offer before. So we have learned so much, and I truly believe that it's up to all of us to take the experiences that we have had and just take them as far as we can, and to grow our community, and to grow our businesses, and to grow our own organizations and entities as much as we can. It has been hard. You know, I had to lock the doors of a college on March 19th. I will never forget it, a year ago. Never thought that would be something I would have to do. And I was worried that nothing would happen, that we would not be able to help our community and our students. And it didn't take me but about 2 days to realize that even though those doors were locked, that college was more active than it had been for years and years. We had a completion rate for our graduates last year as high, if not higher, than the year before. Our folks stuck with the students. The community stuck with us to support us as we supported our students. We were able to give out over $500,000 in direct assistance to students. We gave out hundreds of pieces of technology so that our students can continue their classes. But none of that would have happened without the support that this community gives our college. And I want to thank all of you for that. We have been able to spin up new programs during a pandemic when a lot of colleges pulled back. We actually have helicopters and airplanes on the ground waiting for our COVID restrictions to lift so that we can put people close together in an airplane and a helicopter. We're ready to go with that. We have a new fermentation program. We have a new program called MCC Accelerate that will allow a working adult student to be able to finish their degree while continuing to work, only being on campus 1 evening a week, and still finish in 2 years. Most adult workers who have to go to school part-time will take a minimum of 6 years to finish a 2-year degree. And that's not going to happen anymore in this part of the country, in this part of the state. So, I just want to say I'm thankful for the support that we have continued to garner from this community, but I'm thankful to see all of your faces today. And on behalf of the board and behalf of Madisonville Community College, thank you for being here today. I want to thank our speakers one more time. Libby, thank you and your team for such a great job. And please go out, be safe, and just remember, as long as we stay stronger, our future will stay bright. So thank you very much for being here. And Representative Prunty, I think there's a gift up here on the stage for you. I just saw it.